And my guest tonight is Noordin Haji, the Director of Public Prosecution. Welcome to the show tonight. My name is Ken Mijungu. As always, the hashtag is Sidebar. At NTV Kenya, at Ken Mijungu. Sidebar begins right now.
If such an individual would come on issues of graft, then my bare minimum is, one, they would have to pay 3 times what they stole. 2, they would have to serve not less than 6 months. And I emphasize the reason for that is that they will have to step aside.
If you ask the police today, they will tell you they're overwhelmed in dealing with criminal cases. If you ask the EACC, we shall tell you in black and white that we are overwhelmed with backlog. The DPP, who keeps on talking of cases starting from witchcraft to grand corruption, he is also overwhelmed with cases. And this is the only way out.
And thank you for joining us tonight. Of course, we begin the discussion. It has been 1 year and about 8 months since you assumed office. And Kenyans have been looking at the functions of this office, especially after you came in. And do you think from where you sit as a DPP, Kenyans have understood your role, precisely what you do as a DPP?
I hope so, you know. But of course, there are quite a number of Kenyans who also don't understand what the role of prosecutors are and the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. But we've taken it upon ourselves to make sure that Kenyans understand. And one of the strategies that we've done is to reach out to the communities so that they understand their rights, they understand the different roles of the agencies within the criminal justice system. Okay. One thing, though, of course, is everybody asks me about convictions and whether it really rests on the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. Okay. I think it's much more complex. I'm
going to talk about the convictions. Okay. I just want to understand your role first. And looking at it, you have been there 18 months, 1 year, 8 months, thereabout. Do you think you're equipped properly as a DPP to fight graft?
We are equipping now.
Yes.
Let me put it that way. And we have a lot of goodwill to ensure that we're equipped. Of course, we would want more. I think if you compare to where we came from 18 months ago, we are much far ahead. But there's been a lot of support in ensuring that we are well equipped.
That you're well equipped. And that responsibility, you being equipped, looking at it the way it is, this mandate, having assessed it, is it exclusively yours or it's a shared responsibility? Because sometimes we wonder by the time you're ending up in court, is there other agencies that have collaborated and helped you in this journey to end up in court?
Of course. Okay, when it comes to prosecution, it's just the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. Okay. But there are other prosecutors who are found in different agencies, but they derive their powers from the ODPP, and the Director of Public Prosecution is the one who delegates that powers to them. You know, bringing a case to court is very complex. So we have investigators, and that's where usually it starts. You get a complaint, it goes to the investigations, the investigators investigate it, they bring the file to us, we have a look at it. If we're not satisfied, then we tell them what areas to cover. Okay. But what we've done moving forward is we've become a little bit more proactive, looking at the Constitution and the ODPP Act, where it envisages that prosecutors will assist in investigations. And we're doing that much more. So we have more collaboration, more cooperation and coordination with the investigative agencies.
All right. And when you started this, definitely there was a lot of expectation. And it's 2 months after you began, the NYS2. Yes. And that is a case that thrust you in the limelight, especially how you dealt with it. And it goes without saying that with that case, Kenyans had a lot of expectations in you. And with that also comes the responsibility of having we give you and then we have to take away from you. I don't know how much you think Kenyans expect from you and how much you have met that expectation so far.
Well, I think Kenyans expect a lot, considering as a country where we've come from and where we are, because of issues graft, but also because of this graft and impunity. A lot of our institutions were eroded. So there's a lot of expectations from the public. But on top of that, the Constitution itself places a lot of expectation on the office itself.
Okay.
So this is something that we understand, and we are trying, we're striving. There are challenges, we are trying to overcome them.
Okay.
And within the means that we have as a country, we are trying our best.
Okay. And you said you're equipping. So that expectation, you're just equipping. Is it unrealistic? Because you said you're just equipping.
Okay. I didn't say we're just equipping, but we are enhancing.
Enhancing.
Equipping is continuous.
Okay.
So, for example, if you sit here at the studios of NTV, a year or two later, you have to get new equipment.
Okay.
Because either the technology is obsolete, or you have new equipment. That is continuous.
Okay.
So we are building capacity. We are trying to equip ourselves. We are trying to ensure that we're at par with the legislations that come. Legislations change every now and then.
Okay.
Yeah, just like technology and other stuff.
All right. And obviously, you have done a lot, and Kenyans applaud you in different platforms about the things you've been able to do so far. What would you attribute this to? Political goodwill? Or just goodwill from the appointing authority? Or goodwill from Kenyans who want to see some blood drawn?
I think all that, a combination of all that.
But which comes at the top? Which comes at the top?
I think the most important thing is if you have Kenyans understanding the people.
Okay.
Because we all derive our authority, our mandate from the people and the Constitution, which captures the aspiration of the Kenyan people. So that's the most important thing for me.
Okay.
The rest come in, of course, the political goodwill, especially from His Excellency the President as the head of state, is very important, and he's given that to us.
Okay. Yeah. And that political goodwill and public goodwill, I want to divide it. And my question specifically, now that you have said that you have that political goodwill and the public goodwill, are you worried because you still have some time to serve? If the governments change and if the policy changes, how would you counteract that with your mandate? Because you need to do this for the future. But what if the government changes in the next 2 years? What if that policy that allows you to do these changes? Have you thought about it?
No, I think the Constitution doesn't change, and it's very clear.
But we spoke about goodwill. That's not in the Constitution.
No,
yes.
I agree.
Yes.
That is not in the Constitution. But the Constitution is the guiding. Actually, we could even say the guiding policy for us. We are actually an independent authority and do not necessarily depend on policy, necessarily policy given by the president or politicians. We are an independent office, and the Constitution is very clear.
Okay.
And we will try as much as possible to ensure that whatever mandate we have, we discharge it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But having said that, we can't forget the fact that a few days ago when the president was in Mombasa, when he was talking about prosecuting corruption and the people who are involved, when he said Simu Zimwa, it means he also knew there were people who are riding on their connection with the powers that be to frustrate you. So that is very important to you.
Yes, it is.
The political connection.
Yeah.
But what if it changes? What if that is taken away from you?
Well, I mean, one thing, it depends on who the DPP is and the way you steer your organization. As I said, and I take you back again,
yes,
the Constitution is very clear that we are independent and there should be no interference whatsoever. I think we will make it clear that this is our mandate. And if we can't operate within that, then, as an individual myself, I have options.
Okay.
Either to step aside and allow them, or whoever it is.
So this is something you're doing for Kenyans?
Of course, and that's what I've told you.
Yes.
The most important thing for me is the goodwill from the Kenyans.
The president has time and again spoken about we will prosecute, they will not be left. It looks as if he's giving you direction. The DCI, it looks as though he's giving direction.
I don't think, he's not giving direction. He's the head of state. He's the head of government. He's the head of the executive.
Okay.
And therefore, what he's simply doing is emphasizing what should be happening.
Okay.
And giving that leadership. I think that's the most important thing. For a long time as a country, we didn't have that leadership. And the leadership of this country, I think we all have to appreciate, comes from the president. And that's what he's been doing. And there is nothing and absolutely nothing wrong with him saying and doing that. And it is within the Constitution
for him to say that.
And he's emphasizing on the importance of ensuring that the Constitution is observed.
Is it true that the president gave you a free hand to do your job. So is the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, that you have been left to do your job, and so far he's happy with your job. Is it true that he left you, told you, do your job? If you fail me, you fail the country.
Of course, I mean, again, takes us back to the Constitution. What he was doing is just re-emphasizing.
Okay.
One, because of the culture that we had before as a country and where we came from before.
Okay.
And he was simply saying, I have sworn myself to the Constitution, and I will ensure, as a leader and as the president who holds executive power, that this happens.
Okay. Let's come back to the goodwill also. What do you do as a DPP to harness that, to completely ensure that you ride on that goodwill, so that by the time you're done with your term, you have something concrete you can share with Kenyans? Is that specific?
There's a lot that we're trying to do behind the scene. One, as I told you, is to build capacity within our DPP, which was wanting. I must be frank with you. Again, being able to build that synergy between us and the investigators, and even the judiciary, because we are all interdependent. There is no, even if I'm an independent institution in the Constitution, I don't work in a vacuum.
Okay.
We have to work with other people, and that is what we're trying to do, to ensure that there's synergy towards one common goal as Kenya, to fight graft and other crimes.
Now that you've spoken about the judiciary, it's been 18 months or so, and there's a time there was a forum and the judiciary was said to be the weakest link in the fight on graft. And that is your biggest calling. I think that's your biggest calling. The DPP has several responsibilities, but right now in this country, fighting graft is the biggest. Do you think that term, connotation, weakest link, has affected your work in any way?
This is from you.
It's not from me. It was said during a forum that even the Chief Justice acknowledged at the judiciary.
No, I think, as I told you, our systems have a problem, generally. And you cannot pinpoint it on the judiciary alone. One thing that I know is probably the misunderstanding of the different roles that we have. And I've told you, and I think continuously, people are getting to appreciate that we are all interdependent. So the judiciary can also not work in a vacuum. If the aspirations of the Kenyan people is to fight graft and ensure that we are able to utilize our resources efficiently and effectively, if they appreciate that, and all of us within the criminal justice system, then there will be no weak link.
Okay.
We are all possible weak links, and because of graft, there's nobody who's been spared of graft within the criminal justice system, whether it be the investigators or the prosecutors or the
judiciary itself.
Precisely.
That's a fact that you acknowledge.
Yes.
All right. And I'll come back to the relationship between the DPP and the judiciary, but let me take you forward to your relationship with the DCI. And one of the reasons that perhaps some of the cases have failed is because of the...
Which cases, may I ask?
They have not succeeded. We haven't seen a prosecution that has resulted to a conviction. But I'll give you the example then. You want to know a specific one?
Yes, please.
The DCJ case that collapsed in court. That's a case that failed.
It's not collapsed in court.
It collapsed in court?
No, it didn't.
What happened?
We appealed. It's still in court.
And you went straight to the Judicial Service Commission too?
We did, yeah. We went to the Court of Appeal.
If you're confident of the court, why did you do that?
But what is the Judicial Service Commission? It's part of the judiciary.
Yes.
And those were directions that we were given by the High Court. So what we did is we picked the areas that the High Court said should go to the Judicial Service Commission. In our opinion,
yes,
that shouldn't have been the case. But we accepted it.
It's a lose and win whenever you take a case in court.
Well, and this is one thing Kenyans also need to understand.
Yes.
Prosecution does not necessarily lead to convictions. You can lose on technical grounds. We're all humans. On maybe evidence that the judiciary feels, or the judge or the magistrate who is sitting feels has not reached the threshold. Now again, this is very relative, because the discretion is on the individual, and we vary as human beings when you look at the law and sometimes when you interpret. But we respect that. We respect the rulings by the judiciary, even when we feel aggrieved. But then again, the Constitution and the laws provide that when you are aggrieved, then you can, you can appeal.
Yes.
And this is what we've done. So the areas for the DCJ that was clearly spelled out at the High Court, we took that to the Judicial Service Commission.
Okay.
And we even had more in terms of infractions that she was involved in. And we presented that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What Kenyans remember about this case is the fact that they said that the DCI did not properly obtain the evidence that was presented in court.
Those are the areas that we are appealing on. Because
Yes.
in our opinion,
It did not matter how you obtained the evidence.
No.
Yes.
It does matter how you
Yes.
obtain the evidence,
Okay.
that we obtained it rightly.
Okay.
And we have evidence to show that. The thing is, when they went to the High Court, these were not areas that the judges were supposed to
Consider?
Yes, to consider.
Yes.
This was outside the appeal. It was outside. I'm trying to look for the right word. It's escaping, but it was outside.
What you asked
the
the court to do,
applications,
yes.
yeah, not us, but
Yes.
the DCJ.
The DCJ, yes.
And it came to a surprise.
Okay.
For us, it was a surprise. It was unusual, but we accepted it, and we said we're going to appeal,
Okay.
because we felt that the judges erred in law.
And you agree with that ruling, but you obviously...
We don't agree with it.
You accepted it at that time.
No, but what option do we have?
You had to accept it.
No,
but your
we
manner
didn't
of
accept
accepting it,
No,
that
we
is what's
didn't-
questionable.
we didn't accept it.
Yes.
That's why we have appealed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Accepting in that you said, fine, it's okay with what the court has said, but we're going to appeal.
No. We didn't accept.
You didn't accept it?
What we've accepted are the principles laid in law.
Okay.
That when you're aggrieved with a ruling, then you can appeal.
You can appeal.
That's what we've done.
All right.
Yeah.
Why did you sit at that press conference with the DCI, honestly? Why didn't you just use your lawyers to go back to court instead of holding a press conference? Because you have been accused of prosecuting your cases in the media. Why did you have to do that PR exercise?
No, it was not a PR exercise.
But why did you have to do it?
We had to do it to inform the public. And that's part of the Constitution, the right to information, as to why we make certain decisions. And this is why we do what we do.
Okay.
When we give press statements, when we explain to the public what is going on.
Okay, so we'll take that was the explaining part. Good enough. Don't you think, inevitably, now talking about your relationship with the DCI,
Yes.
they are setting you up to fail
Who is
because they're
setting-
giving you weak evidence to present in court?
but Mjunga, I've been very strict.
Yeah.
If you look at the number of cases that we've brought, and you understanding the amount of graft in Kenya, and sometimes even the cases that, as NTV, you have highlighted, I think the number of cases are very few.
Okay.
And this is because we have continuously asked the investigators to go back and do more for us to be able to prosecute.
Indeed, we've seen
and give
cases
it-
that you have referred back for investigations.
Yes,
That's very true. That's very true.
A lot of them, and even those ones that we give consent. If you follow the chronology of the statement that we give and the dates, you will see that it took time before we arrived to the decision that we arrived at.
All right. The judiciary, the DCI, now the other link that perhaps is weakening your work, the lawyers. Have you considered, because I'll give you an example.
Which lawyers?
The lawyers who are involved in
prosecutors
this case, in these cases, not yours.
Okay.
I'm just looking at the weakest links
Yes.
in your work, the prosecutions of these cases. I'll give you the example of a NHIF case that is yet to take to begin, and we have 74 witnesses lined up by the prosecution. We have about 30 lawyers. Now, if you look at the act that gives you your mandate to prosecute corruption, it says 2 years. The cases should be concluded, right?
No, not necessarily.
It's not 2 years.
No.
How long? Is it open in the period that you should be prosecuting cases?
It's open. It depends on the judiciary. It depends on when the judgment will be given at the end.
Okay.
The 2 years I think you're alluding to is the suspension of the state officer or the public officer. It should be at least within 2 years.
What is supposed to happen with those 2 years?
Well, they envisage that within those 2 years,
The case shall have been concluded.
yes,
Exactly.
But,
that's
but
my
then,
point.
but then, no. But then, this is just to make sure that you don't really overtly penalize an individual, because there is a situation where even after you finish within a year, then you don't return the individual back to office.
Okay.
But then it is simple. If it's after 2 years, then the administrative institution will have to look for other means of terminating a contract if they have to, or agreeing with the individual that they have to wait until the case is over in court.
Okay. So my point is the 2 years offers a very good check and balance.
Well,
to ensure that the people who are
yes,
accused
but
don't suffer.
but then this is not up to us.
Okay.
As only up to us as prosecutors. It involves the judiciary also, and a lot of it is that what the CJ has done now is he's set up an anti-corruption court. He's added the number of magistrates and judges to deal with that, so that we can be able to expedite. Okay. A lot of things that that is done in the judiciary is old in its traditions, especially like having to take notes manually, and then sometimes you have to wait for them to be prepared. But now we're trying to see how we can digitize that process to make it faster.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Back to my question, because your explanation to me, because there are some unwritten rules, but to me the 2-year period, to me it sounds as if that's the period it should take to conclude these cases.
Fine. If we have everything in place,
okay,
I will abide to that.
Right. I know it's frustrating your work also by asking for injunctions.
Well, there is that too, but
yes.
but then, constitutionally,
they're allowed to do that.
Yes. So there's nothing much we can do.
Okay.
Yeah, and we can't curtail it.
All right. Yeah. I told you I'll take you back to the judiciary, and
yes.
of course, the judiciary. You've spoken about the Chief Justice appointing more magistrates,
yes.
And just last week, we know the President has declined to appoint 41 more judges
yes.
to the other courts, right?
Correct,
and
yeah.
Obviously, during your vetting, there's something you mentioned. I'll just read this to you. You said, it's not humanly possible for one person to handle 200 cases and successfully prosecute them. Do you still hold true to that opinion, that it's impossible for
yes.
the personnel we have to do
yes.
that?
And we are working towards ensuring we have more capacity, as yes. I told you.
So that means the judiciary really needs to have these resources.
I was talking about prosecutors, but yes, of course, even the judiciary. But
you work in collaboration.
Yeah. But also the kind of workload, in my opinion, and somebody can have a different opinion. I think the one on the prosecutors is much heavier.
It's much heavier.
Because we are the ones who go through the documents. We are the ones who go through the evidence. We are the ones who have to present it in court. We are the ones who have to prepare it so that the judge or the magistrate understands and appreciates. Okay. So the workload is a bit different. Okay. That said, we still do need more. But the other thing is the judiciary have a lot more compared to the prosecutors. For a long time, Kane, for a long time, I think prosecutors have been neglected and ignored. Yes. It's only now that we are trying to make sure that that is corrected. And when you concentrate on only one arm and don't do much about the other ones, then again you have weak links, okay, which then churns the wrong results at the end of it. Okay. So for a long time, for example, the investigators, maybe their housing, because they fall under the police, for example, if you look at the DCI, is wanting. Yeah? Okay. The allowances are wanting, the equipment. But then the government now is trying to correct that. Prosecutors had very little. The salaries were poor. There was no incentive to get good lawyers on board. Not to say that the ones that we have are not good, they are good, but we would have a bigger team, a better team, a motivated team, which for a long time we didn't.
You've not heard.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to talk more about the judiciary. And the reason why I'll talk about the judiciary, and yet you are the DPP, is because of the collaboration, coordination, and of course you spoke about the cooperation nature of your work, because you have to work with them. We're taking a short break. When we come back, I'd like to still talk about the opinion, what you said during your vetting, that it's not humanly possible. And the reason why I'm talking about that is because of the budget cuts. I'd also like to know how much that has affected your office, and also how much it's affecting the judiciary. And more importantly, why you haven't spoken about how this is going to affect your work in connection to what you do with the judiciary.
Okay.
So we take a short break. When we come back, those are the questions that I'm putting to the DPP. Short break on Sidebar, but we're back after a moment. And we're back with Sidebar. DPP is my guest tonight, and of course we're talking about his work since he was appointed in 2019, what he's been able to achieve, and let's begin with where we left. That's the judiciary. And when is the last time that you sat with the judiciary and spoke about how their work affects your work? Do you have regular meetings?
Yes, we have what you call the NCAJ.
Yes.
That's the National Council on the Administration of Justice. And we meet regularly. It's chaired by the Chief Justice. And there's quite a number of people within the criminal justice system and also the legal fraternity. So the Attorney General sits there, I sit there, the IG, the DCI, EACC, almost everybody within government that deals with either criminal or the legal side of things. So yes, we do meet.
When was the last time?
With who now?
With that group.
The last time was, in August.
In August?
Yes.
No wonder you have not spoken about the issue of budget cuts, because this is going to affect, does it affect you?
You see, you asked me for NCAJ.
Yes.
But there are many other forums that we meet.
Okay.
For example, my advisory board, the representative of the Chief Justice sits there, who is Madam Amadi, the CRJ.
The CRJ, yes.
The CRJ, sorry, sits there. So we have regular interactions. I was in Kisumu last week.
Yes.
And I met with all the High Court judges in the courts there, and the magistrates also. So we have continuous interaction. Don't forget that even in court, you always interact with them. Yes. You have what you call the CUCs, the court users committees.
But this is just about the policymakers, the people who define what happens.
We also meet regularly as policymakers.
So you are concerned with the budget cuts as much as the judiciary is concerned?
Of course, we're all concerned, but you have to be fair and objective. I think as a country we're going through a difficult patch. And what the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Treasury is doing is to re-evaluate, because I think his argument is that we were living big, and it's not possible to meet all that. The judiciary's budget is quite big, I must say, but I'm also saying and reaching out to say that if we have the money, then a negotiated agreement should be reached between the judiciary and the cabinet secretary, treasury, and treasury itself. But these are measures that, as a country, we have to take. I think, and all countries go through this. You have a cycle within the economy, and at times it becomes hard, and you have to take, austerity measures to ensure that you're able to pass through the hard times. So I don't see anything wrong with that concept. It's only that maybe they need to sit down and negotiate. It will affect us, of course. It's affecting some of the cases that we have. But we are also urging them to sit down and agree.
On that?
And the judiciary needs to pick up which areas can they not give up in terms of that it will affect their operations. And these are the areas that we urge the government to help and ensure that it's not it doesn't give a burden to the judiciary.
Okay, and now that courts have begun to issue notices about cases that will not be able to go on. That's one. Then we are cutting the funding to the judiciary. Then thirdly, the president is declining to appoint 41 judges. Basically, his affidavit said, we don't find a justification for giving more judges, and yet you want to achieve your mandate. Don't you see this is going to compromise?
But these judges, you know, these are not new judges. These are individuals that have been promoted, right?
Yes.
To the Court of Appeal and High Court. So you know, the way you framed it, I don't think it's right. If it was magistrates and all that, that could have, you know, hold some water. But here, we have to look at the Judicial Service Act. We have to look at the Constitution. What does it envisage? Is the president a mere rubber stamp to some of these, you know, proposals for nomination, or does he have an input? And I think what we're saying is they need to, you know, the Chief Justice also needs to sit down, you know, with the president or the executive for that matter, and explain what their positions is, and understand where the president is coming from.
Okay.
I look at it that way. It's just not what people want to make it look, because then the Act would have envisaged that the Judicial Service Commission appoints.
Okay.
And there would be no role for the president whatsoever.
Okay.
Yes.
Which essentially is something that, to me, should be able to happen. I mean, if we have to guarantee this independence. But anyway, you sound like you're supporting the president in this. The decision, because you're saying it's not a mere rubber stamp, so you sound like you're supporting him.
No, but I'm saying the truth. It's not a mere rubber stamp. So what I'm urging is that people should not take hard positions. Okay. That the judiciary also needs to reach out and explain why they've made that decision, despite the reservations that the president has. Okay. Yeah.
But these reservations that the president, and I know I'm pushing you to a territory that ain't yours,
no.
But these reservations that the president has, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these people are vetted. Why were they not brought on the table at that time? Why are you bringing them at the tail end of the process to frustrate the judiciary, so to say? Those reasons.
I think the president has very good reasons as to why.
Not all of them.
What do you mean, not all of them?
Because I've read the affidavit, saying, for example, he has other roles apart from just coming to appoint. That's not a good reason. Or saying there were no budget plans for the same. Yet the appointment of judges is not something that the Chief Justice wakes up and says we need 5 or we need 10. It's something planned for. So you can't justify all the reasons given by the president.
If the president gave those reasons,
yes,
they must be valid.
I look at them as excuses not to appoint judges, to frustrate what's happening in the judiciary and frustrate you.
No. I mean, I think that's the last thing that he would do. Mm-hmm. There are certain principles here, I think, that the president is trying to bring out.
Okay. Especially the last one.
And usually, I think the most important is the issue of questionable characters within those who have been appointed.
Yes.
And I think that's where we really need to focus on.
Okay.
And that's where, if I was in the position of the Chief Justice, I would be able to reach out to the president and say, you know, what reservations do you have really?
And probably especially 2 or 3 judges only. They're not all of them.
Precisely.
Yes.
You know, and it's about a give and take. Huh? And that's why I say I don't think the role of the president is just to rubber stamp. And also, yes, Ken, the other thing is, and I've been cautioning this, is that there is separation of powers. Each arm is separate from the other. And when you have one arm continuously interfering with the other, then you will end up with such results. So when you have court orders and judgments that inhibit and stop the operation of the executive, it creates that bad blood. And I've been urging that everyone should keep
to their lane.
To their
yes,
to their lane as much as possible.
Yes.
Even when the judiciary comes in, if you look at all common law jurisdictions, it must be very compelling reasons as to why they have to issue judicial review, for example,
yes,
or injunctions, or certiorari mandamus. And But the thing is, in Kenya, we've been very, very light in giving some
the orders.
Precisely,
yes.
every other day. So at the end of it, let's not forget, and I've cautioned this, we will have a problem in the sense that you will have, for example, Parliament saying no, the judiciary is interfering with that. Yes. They've already said that.
Yes.
And they will go and start making legislation that will inhibit the judiciary and that will stop them from operating.
Okay.
Then you'll have the executive arguing, no, you've been doing this, this is not possible, because nobody is talking, nobody is sitting down
yes.
To look at both sides and being reasonable. So what we are asking is for people to be reasonable.
Reasonable.
And then the other thing is for us to all appreciate that the president is the head of state.
Yes.
And he's just not another individual that you can ignore. Whether you look at the United States
okay.
or in the UK where you have the Prime Minister, they all have a role. And it is, all arms respect each other. And, we don't want a situation where it is you replace one excessive arm with another.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, take me back just briefly on that. Just one more question. Take me back
yes.
to the issue of what happened during vetting. Why didn't these issues suffice during vetting?
Well, I don't sit in JSC. Those are questions that I think...
Which is good, but
you can put
don't you think it would concern you as an officer of the court?
Yes,
would it concern you?
It does concern me.
It didn't come up during vetting, then suddenly it's coming up?
I don't think it didn't come out
yes.
during vetting. It must have come up.
Then the JSC ignored them?
Well, you see, there are a number of people in the JSC. I'm not privy.
It's a vote. Probably it's a vote right
now.
Yeah,
I'm not privy to what
was
happened.
discussed then, yeah, and how they went through it.
And how they arrived at it.
Okay. Back to the DCI just briefly again, and your working relationship has been really good, and you've seen what Kenyans have been saying. It's Haji and Kinoti on one level. It's really good. But there's this school of thought that perhaps that good working relationship also compromises your work, because then you trust too much what Judge Kinoti does. That's why you end up with weak cases in court.
But you see, you come back again to weak. So which ones are weak cases, if you can tell me? Give me one example since I came to office
yes.
of a weak case.
The ones that have not been successfully prosecuted and they have been discharged, like some of the culprits on NYS have been discharged.
No.
Yes.
That was a decision that I made. And I had my own strategy, okay,
but then
of how to go about things.
Yes.
You see, Ken, what we did is we relooked at all the cases that were brought before court. And what we realized is most of the time, if you look at NYS1, individuals who are prosecuted were brought in as witnesses. Individuals who were involved in the crime were witnesses, and that compromised the whole of NYS.
Yes.
So we sat down and purposely agreed that what we will do is re-strategize. So one of it was that we were going to charge a number of people and then negotiate from that strong point instead of a weak point. And what we've also done is we've ensured that the witnesses that have been involved in the commission understand that, they did something wrong, and if they're going to come as witnesses, they must give us a full proof that they will not become hostile in court and allow the case to fall. Okay. So we have a strategy. I don't want to put it all out here.
Yes, but there was a strategy.
Yes.
But if you don't put it all out, you know what it goes like? It's a failure on your part. That's what Kenyans think. If you don't put it all out.
But the problem, then I have to wait. I want to deliver for Kenyans.
Yes.
Do I put my whole strategy out there and the defense knows? And then,
But in criminal law, you're allowed, the defense must know what you're doing. You can't just ambush them in court.
They must know
yes.
in relation to disclosures and all
yes, that. Yes.
But some of the strategies, they don't need to know. They don't need to know.
Mm-hmm.
And now, if I put it out there, it will compromise my position to be able to negotiate and get, my case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Guidelines. Let's talk about guidelines to prosecute or to charge. Has that lack of guidelines, I saw there was a publication the other day about these guidelines, but lack of those guidelines, how has that affected your work also with the DCI?
Initially, it did affect a lot. But you have to understand the history of this.
Yes.
That the police before were prosecutors. And it's only 10 years, or roughly, 9 years, it will be 10 years next year, since that was changed with the new constitution, that the ODPP now takes the mandate. Before it was the police. Now, for a long time, the police still feel that the decision to charge is theirs.
Okay.
But now we are coming up with these guidelines. So we have a guideline on decision to charge that will clearly spell out who makes the decision to charge. And it is the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution,
okay,
and not the police. There is resistance on the ground, just like there would be resistance in anything new that comes in and people don't understand. But now, as ODPP, we are reasserting or asserting our role as per the Constitution to ensure that, one, the investigators understand that we are independent, and at the end of it, we will make an independent decision
okay,
as to whether to charge or not. Yeah, and these guidelines help, because then this then will be used to come up with curriculum to train the police,
okay,
the DCI officers, to train the prosecutors, and even the ESCC, who are also investigators, so that they understand what their role is. And their role is not to make the decision to charge, it is the ODPP.
So going forward, you think once they're published and they're assimilated, this will be a good thing for your office? Because
no, not for my office, but for Kenyans.
For Kenyans, okay.
Because what the Constitution envisages is that this independent institution, the ODPP, just like the judiciary, will look at things independently without interference or coercion or influence.
Okay.
And that's what we are asserting. And with the guidelines, it will come out very clearly so that the police understand and other stakeholders and the ESCC understand.
Okay.
And the judiciary too.
Will it also make us as Kenyans know this decision was reached because of this and that?
Yes.
Will it help us?
Yes, it will, because the guidelines will tell you how a decision should be arrived.
Reached. Okay.
And when you feel aggrieved, there are processes within it that you can raise,
okay,
and say that this prosecutor erred in making that decision.
This has to go through Parliament?
No.
Okay.
No, it doesn't have to go through Parliament, because the Constitution is clear, and the Act is clear. It is guidelines for practitioners specifically,
that you can come
but also for stakeholders to understand what our roles is.
All right. The reason why I'm bringing up the issue of members of Parliament, I'll take you back to our early discussion on the 2-year period, which to me was envisioned that cases shall have been concluded. There are cases that will definitely not be concluded with that period.
Yeah.
It will not be irreparable damage for the suspects and all. But again, they'll need to understand, is this something that you can use to justify to go back to Parliament and ask them probably for an amendment? Because during your vetting, one thing that the members of Parliament promised you, they said if you are confirmed, they will be ready to work with you and discuss possible amendments to the law to help your office work more efficiently. Is that something that you've looked at and looked at it as a limitation and thought of going to Parliament? Probably
no, I don't think it's a limitation,
yes,
Ken. It's a good thing that we have that time frame. And we will aspire to ensure that we live within it. Of course, it is not very explicit what happens once the 2 years expires. But I think there are other remedies within the administrative outlay of all of institutions, and they can go back to the administrative regulations that they have within the institution.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think we don't need to touch that at all.
You don't need it?
No.
It needs to be extended?
No.
Okay.
I think if we do, the danger with that will be at some point it can be very easily abused.
Okay.
It's good that you have that 2-year time frame. It's good that then it forces us to review, but we will also endeavor to ensure that we meet that time frame, both us and the judiciary.
Okay.
Yeah.
But now what will be ideal for you as a DPP, having been in that institution? What would be ideal for you? What time period would be ideal for you?
I think 2 years, if we work towards it,
yes,
2 years is more than sufficient.
More than sufficient, having sat in that office. Yeah. All right, now, there is a call for BBI. You're not a politician, but I'm going to ask you something related to this. This is a call. It could lead to a referendum. And I'm thinking how, having practiced this for a while, having been an advocate and now the DPP, Article 49, 1H. I'm thinking, if you were given an opportunity, would you like to make an input on Article 49?
I would rather
No,
skip that because
yes.
one can. You know, my old man chairs the BBI.
Yes, yes, I know.
Two,
Yes.
I don't want to be tagged as
No, but the reason why it's important, the reason why it's important, I know.
I would rather,
the reason why Article 49 is important
Yeah.
is because a lot of these people who are taken to court get away through bail and bond. I'm just asking, would you want to tell a different story? Would you want the Constitution, when it's amended, to make it so difficult for these people to get out on bail and bond? I mean, it's not so difficult to contribute on this.
Okay, but I wish you asked it away from the BBI.
Yes.
No,
but that's the only framework. That's the only framework, unless you go to Parliament
to
seek, yes.
You see, what we could have done, either as ODPP or a number of other institutions or individuals,
is to make a presentation on the same.
Yeah, so, but when you peg it to BBI...
BBI. Okay, let's get it away. How would you want to deal with Article 49, 1H, as the DPP?
You know, I mean, issues of bail and bond, you know, there are guidelines by the Chief Justice. And I think it's good that those guidelines are reviewed to accommodate some of the shift as a country we are going through, especially when it comes to issues and matters graft, that they are commensurate with the offense and the amounts. And we are trying to push for that. And you don't really need to go and change the Constitution to achieve that. I think the Constitution that we have is beautiful, and maybe there would be a bit of panel beating here and there. There is no document that is perfect, 100%. But I think in a lot of the other chapters within the Constitution, it provides, and it is adequate enough.
So Article 49, you think we should not touch it, you just need new guidelines?
I think so.
But it has frustrated you, right?
No, it has.
It has frustrated you.
It has frustrated us.
Yes.
But I think there were reasons as to why the Constitution was framed the way they are, to ensure that they safeguard the Kenyans. You don't want a situation where you have rogue individuals who would come in the future and abuse it.
Okay.
So it's a good guideline.
It's a good guideline.
Yeah, it is.
We have heard about 3 or 4 landmark cases where the judiciary or the judges have ruled, or even the chief magistrates on corruption, have given extraordinary figures just to ensure they keep these people.
Yes. Yes.
That is the way that you're using to circumvent, because I bet it's the prosecution asking for these huge monies and asking for these unreasonable timelines.
No.
Yeah.
We are not. And that's why I'm saying, you know, we don't need to amend the Constitution when it comes to that. The discretion is still with the judge or the magistrate. And that particular case was a very good example where they gave, you know, a figure that the magistrate felt was commensurate with
the DPP didn't ask for that figure.
No, we did.
Yes.
But he accepted with us.
Yes.
So you see, what you do is we take a position, we present it in court, and if we convince the judge or the magistrate, then he takes the...
What was the mischief, DPP, asking for that figure?
The 150 million?
Yes, what is the mischief?
No, there was no mischief.
I think the mischief was to keep this guy in for a while.
Not necessarily.
Yes.
It would have served two issues. Yes, to put them in so that they can learn.
Yes.
And it can deter other people from doing what they're doing. But secondly, we felt that this individual did have the money to pay, and he's touched it somewhere. And you would have seen him. If the judiciary kept to that, you would have seen that money being paid, I assure you.
It would have been paid.
It would have been paid,
yes.
I assure you. So there is everything that we do is not out of mischief. No, we have strategies and we have reasons as to why. We want to deter. We want to ensure that we put everything out there to stop graft and corruption within Kenya.
Yes, but that article says reasonable bail and bond, reasonable term, just to ensure they attend court. Is this a way that you're trying to defeat the...
But I'm telling you,
yes,
We thought 150 million was
reasonable.
because we know
yes,
that individual,
they could afford it.
Yes, and they had the money. So,
whoa.
but you've seen other cases. We've not asked for such ridiculous.
A lot of money. You're not asking for a lot of money.
No.
Very interesting indeed. Yeah. And we spoke about your achievements so far. And one of the things you said during your vetting, talking about this, you said it is true that the big fish have money and can afford good lawyers to represent them and delay their cases for a long time. Yes.
You've seen that.
And eventually justice is not served. And you also promised at that time that you'll be meeting with the judiciary to talk about this.
Yes.
Did you meet? Did you speak about it?
I told you we continuously meet.
Yes. No, on this particular subject, on these people, rich Kenyans, who are able to afford.
Yeah, we do. As I told you, in NCAJ, we've raised it.
You've raised it.
And we've asked that the guidelines are reviewed. And I think the Chief Justice has promised that it will be reviewed.
All right.
Yeah.
We're taking another break. When we come back, I'd like to talk about the final one, which I know you are really working on, that plea bargaining. Okay. I'd like Kenyans to really understand plea bargaining. February last year, right now. I'd like to know the status of that. And I'll also touch on your role, which is limited to prosecution. I know sometimes you wish the court will do more, but they don't do more. You prosecute, whatever they give, that's theirs. So I'd like to talk about that. But first, let's take a break so that we sip water. When we come back, we'll have an opportunity to ask the DPP about plea bargaining and for Kenyans to understand what really it is about, because it's been taken out of context. Sometimes they think it's me and you sitting across the table and saying, no, take, give and take.
So it's important for them to
important
understand.
For you to know and to understand. And your bare minimums, you spoke about them on plea bargaining.
Yes.
Stay with us. We're back with Sidebar in a moment. Right, welcome back. Still sitting here with the Director of Public Prosecution, putting the questions on his role. He was appointed I think he assumed office in April of 2018, last year. He's done a good job. It's commendable, but we still have questions for him. I ended with this quote that you said during your vetting, that it's true the big fish have money and can afford good lawyers to represent them and delay their cases for a long time, and eventually justice is not served. Now, when I review what you said then, what comes to my mind is plea bargaining. And the fact that the same people you're talking about are able to get away with murder, so to say, because of this opportunity you're affording them and because they have the money. Does it concern you?
I think then you have, I mean, there's a misconception of what plea bargaining is all about. One thing with plea bargaining is that you will have to go and take a plea. And most of the time, the individual then accepts that a wrong happened. Now, when it comes to the issue of big fish, this is where I've said there is a bare minimum that I will require before you can be able to hop on the plea bargaining. So I think it is the nation that gave a very good example, or was it the Star, that gave a very good example of, for example, what happened with Akashas. They did enter into plea bargaining agreements, but they still ended up serving.
Yes.
The trial was expedited. It was done very much quicker. The sentences they were given, still hefty, but lower than what they would have gotten
if they didn't get into
yes, if a conviction was gotten. So plea bargaining has its advantages, more than its disadvantages, in my opinion. One area that that this will help us with is to first of all unclog the judiciary. So we as ODPP have been focusing plea bargaining. We have been focusing on the petty crimes, especially, so that we try and move them out to be able to concentrate with these very complex cases, especially when it comes to corruption and others like murder and stuff. But as I said, there is a bare minimum for me when it comes to
what is it?
issues of
what
graft.
Is it?
So I gave an example, for example, an example of the governors. That one, they would have to pay 3 times the amount that was ill-gotten. 2,
is that the law though?
if you look at their SECA, if you were convicted, then you're expected to return 3 times. So it's still low. still based on the Anti-Corruption and Ethics Act. 2, for me, they would have to serve 7 months, a minimum of 7 months.
Okay.
And you know what that means under the Constitution.
They will have to
6
exit?
months, precisely.
Yes.
And then again, it will vary from one person to the other. We could demand for much more than 6 months. But them in 7 months. But if we...
And this is deliberate, DPP. This is very deliberate. When I hear 7 months, it's very deliberate.
Yes, of course.
It's deliberate.
I mean, they must feel the pain.
Yes.
I mean, after stealing Kenyans' money, we're not going to allow you to go back out there and bask in the sun. There must be some atonement on the individuals who have been involved. So it is deliberate. And this is in relation to graft.
Yes.
Other ones we will come up with our bare minimums. Usually that's what you do in negotiations. You place your bare minimums and then negotiate going up.
You don't go down. That's the bare minimum.
For graft cases, yes.
Bare minimum.
And that's what I've told prosecutors,
yes,
who are dealing with anti-corruption matters.
Does this have a strong foundation in law?
Of course it has a strong foundation in law. If you go to the US, for example, you actually have to you know, put down everything that you did in relation to crime. Say everything from the beginning. Huh? Those are the requirements. So every single infraction you're involved with, you will have to say, this is what I did, this is what happened, and then now you move on. And we've come up with guidelines, and they're very clear. We are going to enhance them as we interact and see, you know, how effective they are. One thing that I've tried to do, and I will continuously try to do, is to ensure there is integrity in the process, so that you don't have people cutting deals at all. And it's very clear this is not about cutting deals. There are several layers of oversight on arriving on an agreement, including the judiciary, who we will finally present to.
Do you have successes so far? 2018 and
yes, yes, we've done several pilot projects. One is a bank, and family bank. We entered into a plea bargaining.
Yes,
there are several other smaller ones. Another one was with the EACC when we had the return of the land, which was about worth 2 billion.
Naivasha?
No, in Nairobi.
In Nairobi.
Oh, okay. Around Kilimani area.
Okay.
That belonged to University of Nairobi, and it was grabbed.
Okay.
Of course, in Kisumu, there's quite a number that have been returned through plea bargaining. And we find it a much faster process. It is cost effective. We're going to do to reduce the financial burden that the government bears, especially with the remandees in court who are waiting to pay bail or who cannot afford bail. You know, the figures that are used by prisons, for example, are exorbitant. Okay. Extremely exorbitant.
Okay. Yeah. So, in other words, what you're telling us is that you're not getting away with murder. You will not.
No.
Especially for graft.
No.
It's so watertight because I'm looking at it. You have to plead guilty. You have to step aside. You have to serve 7 months, and you have to pay 3 times. In other words, you're not leaving anything to chance here.
No.
Okay. There are 2 cases that comes to my mind, and I'd like to know, and Kenyans will want to know what really you're doing about these 2 cases. One, Acacia is concluded. Kenya.
Well, it's not concluded.
In Kenya, it's not concluded.
No, it's not concluded in New York.
Even
either.
In New York, it's not concluded.
Yeah.
So you're still on it.
The judiciary, I mean the prosecution in New York is still ongoing. So we just had one individual. There's the other brother.
Yes,
there are other 2 individuals. That is not complete.
Okay.
So we're waiting for that, so that DOJ, Department of Justice, can then share with us what they have, and if they feel that they can share what they got from plea bargaining in terms of individuals involved. I know that's where you're leading.
Yes.
Individuals involved in Kenya, and they share it with us, then we'll take action.
Okay. Chris Okemo and Gishuru, case extradition orders, they've been fighting this in court for a long time. Kenyans are wondering what's happening to this case.
Well, it's at the Supreme Court now.
Yes.
What happened is there was a ruling that the office of the DPP did not have the mandate to do extradition. We appealed against that because, in our opinion, the Court of Appeal ruling erred in the sense that they looked at the old constitution, which was not amended. In terms of once the new constitution came and separated the office of the DPP and the Attorney General, and gave the mandate of criminal, the criminal justice part to the ODPP, that extradition and issues of MLA actually fall under the scope of the ODPP. Okay. And that's what we've gone to the Supreme Court to argue. And finally, the chicken gate. I know it's in court, and the case just opened the other day, right? Yeah. But Kenyans are looking at, these are cases, serious fraud office had concluded this case. The agency there had already served, that's Smith and Usman, and they already served, and they're already out, as we're still procrastinating here, still prosecuting it. No, we're not procrastinating. It's before court.
That's why I say DPP that we are procrastinating.
But who is?
It's been concluded the other side.
Yeah, but who is procrastinating?
The judiciary, and perhaps what you're presenting before the judiciary.
You see, the only you can make that conclusion once they give a judgment. As long as they've not given any judgment or ruling, you can't say the case is weak or it is faulty. You know, you can't do that. Okay. You wait, we look at the judgment and see what reasons they give. But insofar as they've not done that,
we cannot conclude.
You cannot argue and say...
I think it's because of the period. I think it's because of the time it has taken to put these guys...
And that's what we're trying to work.
Okay.
And it will require to put quite a bit, even in terms of legislation, in terms of seeing that, as you clearly spelled out there, the defense lawyers don't abuse the system.
Okay. Of late, we see you have changed tack in how you're handling, how you're arresting, and how you're prosecuting. What informed this? Because you say you're focusing more on quality, not quantity. Yeah. Is it the failures of your past? Is it the something you just...
Ken, again...
I'm bringing it back to you because...
You're saying the failures of...
Yet we haven't seen a conviction. I know, but what informed this change of tack?
First of all, let's go back to the issue of convictions.
Yes.
It's not about the ODPP.
True.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Once we have the case and we present it to court, it is the magistrate or the judge who gives us the time, because he has a diary. So if the diary is full, you can't start removing cases, because then the argument will be you're biased, or you're favoring one case and therefore certain individuals over the others. Yeah? So, as practical as possible, they look at the diary and give us dates. Sometimes those dates are 6-7 months later. Yeah? Well, there's nothing much we can do about it. So, what the CJ has tried to do is put more magistrates. He's pulled them from other areas and put them in the anti-corruption court, so that we can be able to expedite and do this much faster. I have also done the same. I've pulled a number of prosecutors and put them in anti-corruption cases, and I've also gotten special prosecutors to come and assist us in those cases.
Okay.
So Ken, issues conviction, it is just more than the prosecutors. Actually, I think if you ask me, it lies more with the judiciary than
you.
Yeah.
But it also lies with the evidence that you're given by the DCI that comes to you.
Well, you see, if the argument is that the evidence is wanting, then the process should be very fast.
Okay.
Because the magistrate will just go through it very quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, and say...
Would you be at liberty? I know you said you did it on the NYS case, but would you feel shy to terminate cases that you think don't make sense and you already started them?
No, I will not feel shy, because it's part of the process the world over.
Yes.
You can go and terminate and then come back and either prosecute them or just say, simply I've added. You know, we're humans.
Yes.
I'm not 100%.
So you will do it.
Can make,
you will do it.
Yes, I will.
And you've done it NYS.
I will bite the bullet.
Okay, all right.
And I've not withdrawn the NYS case.
You know you've not.
I have
just changed
strategically.
Yes.
Those individuals agreed to become witnesses.
Okay.
So they changed sides.
A lot of arguments we have heard about you is that you're not a coward. But I think when it comes to politicians, they have pushed you to the wall. When you used to arrest every Friday.
In what way?
I'm explaining. When you used to arrest every Friday.
Yeah.
They made so much noise. At one time you said you will not bow to the pressure from politicians and stop arresting.
And I haven't.
But you stopped arresting, or there are no more people to arrest?
No, I've not stopped arresting.
On Kamata Friday. Last time I heard of it was months ago.
Yeah, but remember, even before the dam cases, it was months before we came in.
Okay.
And you said it yourself. The strategy that we've changed is now we want quality, not just quantity. And after staying in office for a year, what I saw is that we were concentrating on quantity.
Yes.
I'm not going to do that anymore. I will concentrate on quality. I will concentrate on cases that have huge impact and a ripple effect within Kenya, so that people are able to understand when you're involved in graft, then you'll be nabbed and you'll end up in court.
Okay. So this is nothing to do with politicians.
No.
But they're beating you and scaring you away.
No, if I was scared, I would not have done the damn case then.
Okay. All right. I'd like to talk just briefly about three things. You spoke about innovation, so I'll not touch on that. But I'd like to know, being the son of Yusuf Haji, how that has affected your work, and obviously your relationship with the president, and if he's allowed you to be independent. I know I've touched on it, but just that aspect of your relationship with the president. But I said we have this segment on cartoon side, or Toon Side of the Week. I'd like you to take a look at this cartoon and give me your analogy of the same. It will be on your screen shortly. Let's have it. Right.
It's up there. I can see
it's up there. All right. You can say it. Yes. Your analogy of that cartoon.
I think this was done ages ago when I came into office.
Yes.
And this is what people thought, that I would just be a robot and be answerable, to maybe, I think, what they're trying to say, to the executive. And probably that's why you're asking me about the question about my relationship with the president. I don't know how I fared. I don't like evaluating myself, because I don't think that's right. It should be other people who should evaluate. And maybe I should ask you whether you think I'm actually a robot of a DPP. I'm asking you.
All right, Kenyans will judge if you're a robot or not. But even as we
you're
end,
a Kenyan, man.
I'm a Kenyan, but I can't give my opinion on what I think. My concern was the switch.
The switch, yes.
Yes,
and
you can be switched on and off.
That's and that's why I was telling you. I think that switch, the implication, I mean, the insinuation is that it's the executive that can
switch you on and off.
Yes.
Okay. Because people think that you have been fighting the war for the executive and politics. You're settling scores.
But then I think that's very unfair. The biggest casualties has been the executive.
What side of the executive? Both sides of the executive?
Both sides.
Okay, because they think you're bent towards one side more.
Which one?
The appointing authority.
No, both sides.
Okay.
I mean, which other? Tell me which other authority is there. No, I mean, maybe you want to rephrase. Maybe I didn't understand your question.
The side that was attacking you is the other side. The executive is split. I don't want to go to politics, but what we see in the country currently, the executive is split.
As far as I'm concerned,
it's not split. It's one executive.
Yeah, precisely. Okay. I have the president, I have the deputy president, and the whole executive.
Okay.
That's just one.
Okay. All right. I'm coming back to the last question, but let's do this. Every week we pick the comments of a politician and try to tell you what they said. And this week, this is what we picked on who said what. Take a look.
Tukipewa tu pesa kidogo ya projects mingi, wakora wanaenda kukaa Nairobi na kupanga ati kuna corruption imeibwa. Jaribuni mkansel hiyo contract. tuone ile shida itatokea dunia hii kati ya Kenya na huyo contractor.
All right. I don't need to belabor that point, but that's who said what for this week. Finally, DPP, as I let you go, being the son of Yusuf Haji, how has that shaped you? How has that helped you do your work? How has that, if any, undermined your role?
I think Yusuf Haji is my father.
Yes.
Not the politician that you know.
Yes, your father, yes.
He was a disciplinarian, is a disciplinarian and very strict and God-fearing. And I must say, a lot of what I do is because of what I was taught by him and my mother. And I see it as a privilege. He was a very strict parent, strict in the sense that he would not allow us to be deluded by trappings of his office. He always insisted that he's the PC. We are just Kenyans, and part of what I mean is we were not the PC. He was the PC, for example, or the minister, or whatever position that he held. And to date, that is the position that he has. Initially when I took office, a lot of people thought they would go to him and influence me.
It's never happened.
No, and he made it very clear that he will not, and he will not be part of it, especially from his colleagues in Parliament.
Okay.
And I admire him for that.
All right.
Yeah, and even when we go home, I go home every evening to see him when he's around. He hardly
talks about your work.
No.
He draws the line clearly.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, DPP, for coming and sharing. We had a lot of questions for you. I know I didn't touch on the action that most embassies have taken on these culprits, but it's a topic for another discussion. I'll keep that question because I want you back on Sidebar.
Okay.
I know you'll come back. Thank you very much for sharing your opinion, and hopefully Kenyans will make their own judgment if you're a robot or not, and the type of work you have done. And thank you for watching Sidebar. Let's do this again next week, same place, same time. Have a good night.